you hear exam and then you're like, it's gonna be bad. Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Apologies for what may be dark lighting. I have no idea how this is going to look until I get in the edit. It's kind of like 8 o'clock at night and this is officially now my reading week, so I wanted to sit down and make this video because I've actually made it halfway through term 1, which means I've made it a quarter of the way through my teaching time here at King's. And I know that doesn't sound like an achievement, but it feels like it is because, boy, the last 5 weeks have been tough. Like, way harder than I expected it to be. So I wanted to sit down now at the halfway point whilst I have a moment to collect myself for the week to basically sit down and explain what's been going on this term, how I found my modules, the workload, assessments, like what it's like living in London, especially during COVID, and what is going to happen for the second half of this term. Basically, KCL update at reading week half term. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So I feel like the most appropriate place to start would be modules and like workload surrounding them. So for those of you that don't know, I'm studying for an MA in medical ethics and law here at KCL, King's College London. So for my course, it's split over 20 weeks of teaching time, and then third term basically stretches from May to September, which is when I do my dissertation. So in terms of actual teaching time, I only have 20 weeks, which is 10 weeks in autumn term, 10 weeks in spring term. So all of my modules and stuff fit into those 20 weeks. So term 1, I am taking 5 modules. For the first 5 weeks, I actually only took 3 modules, which equated to 60 credits. And then basically I'm taking 2 half modules that pop up next kind of half of the term. So then that brings up to 80 credits. So pray for me. Please pray for me. In second term, I'm actually only taking 40 credits the whole term. So I'm getting the bulk of my year gone out of the way in autumn term, which on reflection I like because I know that I'm going to feel fresher now than I will in like February, but at the same time it is hard. Like, there's a lot to do. And yeah, it's just a bit much right now. So I just know that I need to like get through it, get to Christmas, have another week off, recuperate. Yeah, the modules that I've been taking for this half of the term were ethics, which is 20 credits. Basically, it looks at a different theory each week. And the way that course is sort of structured is that he gives us about 100 pages of reading over either 1 or 2 different like papers. Then he has lectures on each paper, which are typically probably half an hour per thing that we read. Normally the lectures total up to about an hour, hour and a half max. And then on a Monday morning I have a class from 11 till 1, which basically goes through everything that we've read. It's kind of probably one of my most interactive classes because we just spend the 2 hours discussing what we've read. Although it's very different to undergrad, because when I was at undergrad, when we discuss philosophy, we very much discuss philosophy with each other, like with our colleagues, with our peers, whereas at postgrad it's more like, well, especially for this module, it's more like, I would say a critique of the paper, then Jonathan the lecturer would reply to that. Someone else would say something about the paper, Jonathan would reply to that. It's very rare that like we actually engage with each other, and I didn't know that that was like not a thing, because especially in my first like few seminars, people would say stuff and I would like comment on what they've said, and then they just sort of like go blank and don't respond, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm from a law degree where we just debate each other all of the time, and that's very much something that has not transferred to my master's, which is weird, but whatever. Then the other 2 modules go on to a Wednesday, so I'm taking medical law, which is a compulsory module, didn't get to choose it, wouldn't have chosen it, but whatever. It's consent, refusal and request. It's basically mental capacity law, mental health law, and everything that I've done on my mental capacity and mental health law module in my undergrad. So it's nice to like go back over it and to be super familiar with it, but at the same time I'm bored, so bored in that class, because it's very different as well to how I learnt law at undergrad, and I don't think I prefer it, if I'm honest. So the way that class is structured is she sets like a shitload of reading, normally goes over 100 pages easily, maybe 150. We don't have lectures, which is like a good sign, but then in the 2-hour seminar we normally spend the first half in a lecture, which is weird. Like, she just basically gives a presentation, which always feels super redundant because everything on the slides goes over minute detail of what was in the textbook, but if you've read the textbook, you're kind of just bored in the lecture, but then equally the lecture's not enough to then not do the reading, so you kind of have to do both, but it also just feels like I'm not gaining anything, you know? So I don't really like that class purely because I feel like there's a lot of repetition, not only with what I've done previously, but also just within the syllabus, and it just feels like such a waste of time when you have like 150 pages to read every week just for that one class. And then the second half of that seminar is literally just like meant to be discussion. It's very rare that people have contributions. I think as the course is progressing, people are feeling more confident with either themselves, other people, or the content that we're doing, so they are contributing a bit more. But at the same time, it's just not like undergrad, man. Like undergrad, I did PBL, very different to any university. I mean, you set your own questions, then you researched them, and then you came back as a group and like explained what you got and how you found it. And postgrad, it's like they give you questions and you do the reading, so then you can answer the questions, but then in class they don't even mention the questions, and you sit there like, why do I even bother answering these questions every week, because you don't even ask for them, and we don't discuss them. So that's that rant. The third class that I took for this half of the semester was moral theory and medical ethics, which was also compulsory. I actually kind of like it purely just because it's my easiest class. So the reading for that is more like 50-60 pages max, which love it. And then you just have like problem questions, discussion questions, and a case study to do, which normally probably take an hour max to do all of it, and then the reading. So it's almost my favourite class because the prep time for it is probably 3 or 4 hours, whereas the other ones are like a full day. At the same time, it follows that weird structure where the first half of the seminar is him delivering a lecture, which basically just mind-numbingly recaps what the reading was. So it's great if you don't understand the reading, but I never like to go into a class not understanding the reading. I will sit on YouTube and watch videos if I have to kind of get it. So having done that, then when you're in the class, you're just like, this is dull. Sorry, but true. And then the second half of the session I do like because he puts us into breakout rooms and we can discuss the discussion questions, and it feels just a lot more like meaty and that we're actually learning and doing something and be able to speak to my peers. Like, that is the only class I have where I can actually speak one-on-one with my peers, so I do enjoy that aspect of it. Yeah, that's the modules. So in terms of workload, I wouldn't say it's been too bad when I keep on top of it. But if I have extra curricular stuff going on, or, you know, a social life, rare, but sometimes it happens, that then it can be very easy to get behind, because I normally spend like Sunday doing ethics prep for Monday, Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning prepping for medical law, and then I spend either Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning prepping for moral theory, and then I have the rest of the week off. But if I have something on at the weekend, it basically means then that I'm like getting up at 6 AM on like Mondays and like Wednesdays, and it's just not fun, especially like when some weeks they just set shitloads of reading and you think, why? And then it just means, like, I'm quite a slow reader, so if you set 20 pages extra of reading, that's like an extra hour, then plus note taking, and then maybe looking at YouTube videos or like consolidating my notes, like an extra 2 hours just for like one extra paper, you know what I mean? So it can very easily add up, which is also why I'm a little bit worried for getting 2 new classes like next week when we go into like phase 2 of semester 1, so that'll be fun. We're gonna see what happens there. But yeah, like the general summary is that workload is okay, but at the same time I have found myself very much burning out. Like literally I wish this reading week was a week earlier, because last week was hell. I literally was having like a breakdown and I was just so burnt out and overwhelmed, and I basically was getting up at like 6 AM every day but going to bed at like 10, 11 o'clock at night because I was just trying to fit everything in, and lots of other like things in my personal life were like cropping up that required me to give that attention to, and it just meant I had so much going on. I just was completely drained, and literally on Monday just gone, I was sitting in my Spanish class, I got probably 20 minutes into it, and then I was like, yeah, I think if I'm gonna stay in this class, I'm gonna have an actual breakdown, because I just was so overwhelmed, and I felt like my anxiety was just like rising to the point that I'm like, if he were to ask me a question in that class, it would have tipped me over the edge and I would have like cried in that class. Like sometimes I just get like that when I'm super tired, super overwhelmed, and just I know that I've got so much on it, I can't think about anything else, and it just sort of like overwhelms me. So yeah, I literally just had to leave that class and like go and have a cry, literally just show the clip of how I was. Without a risk of sounding pathetic, but it's just like, I feel emotionally bankrupt. I need to just be on my own and not have people looking at me, and I feel like now I'm on the cusp here. I'm on the cusp, and I feel like, do I do this to myself, or is this just something that like happens to everybody, or just me? I don't know, because people don't really talk about it. And I just feel like at least once or twice a term, more so this term, because it's just been hard, man, is like I have a breakdown a little bit, just a little bit. And it's like, I actually just, I want to, it makes me want to drop out of uni. It makes me want to like have a month to 6 months off. I just get to a point where I'm so burnt out. I just literally can't anymore. At least in the workplace, you can be like, I'm having 3 days off. Let's Sandra do my work. But at uni, it's like, you can't have 3 days off because you suffer for it. Basically, executive summary, I'm not doing too well. I think I'm gonna go for a walk and try and, like, that's gonna sort everything out. I'm gonna go for a walk and I'll be fine. Like, it's not gonna be fine. So yeah, so whilst I say the workload is okay, like it's obvious that it has had quite an effect on me, but I would say that's more because I've been posting on YouTube 3 times a week. I've been taking Spanish as an extracurricular class. I've been upping my workout schedule a lot. I've been like trying to explore London and go for long runs and like, you know, just get out there and like see more and do more before probably the imminent lockdown happens. So I think that if I didn't have any of that going on in my life and I solely was just doing the course and then like Netflix, like most students do, it probably would have been fine. But because I've had so much on, it's just been a lot. So on top of like modules and workload in my breakdown, basically like online learning, have I found that? Well, I've actually liked it. I kind of prefer it, if anything. It's weird because I miss seeing people, but at the same time, because I've kind of like maintained good connections with my friends and like going out for drinks and that type of thing, I actually wouldn't say that I've missed going into class. And I remember, especially for my undergrad, just like dreading going into class because it's always like a burden, thinking I've got to get up, I've got to get ready, I've got to travel there, I've then got to go and sit with people for 2 hours and just like not want to be there, because that's how it was in my undergrad. So I'm glad that I don't actually have that going on, and I do prefer online learning because it means I don't have to get ready in the morning. Like, I don't have to do makeup, I don't have to get my hair done, I don't have to get dressed if I don't want to, you know, I don't have to like travel there, and I can also multitask and like have breakfast whilst I'm like in my seminar. So it means basically I can save a lot more time doing it online, which I do like, but as I said, it can kind of feel a bit isolating at the same time. So going off that, living in London during COVID, I mean just living in London generally. Obviously those of you that have followed this channel for a little while will know that I've lived in London before. Like, I lived here last year and a few years ago before I started university. So it's not necessarily new for me to be living in London, but the area that I'm in is somewhere that I hadn't explored before, and also it's just nice to be back for a permanent basis. Like, 12 months living here for my master's course will be the longest I've ever spent in London, which I absolutely like love the idea of. I don't know how I'm going to be in 12 months time. Right now I am very much enjoying being here and having just much more going on than I had when I was doing my undergrad in York, because that was very much like a quiet town. The only people you would really know is the students, whereas in London I feel like a lot of my friends are here that are like graduates and like they have jobs and young professionals, which also gives me a nice balance of like, yeah, I've got the students that I know, but also other people doing other things. So it's not just like just knowing people from university, and there's just so much more to do here, which I do love. But like during Corona, I don't know, it's been weird because obviously I think we're in tier 2 now when I'm filming this. It doesn't feel any different, if I'm honest. The only real differences are like people wearing face masks and obviously the restrictions on like bars and restaurants and all of that. I think, to be honest, for the most part it literally just feels like it's completely back to normal, or for me at least it feels like that, because pretty much everything is open and people are on the streets, not social distancing, a lot of places are crowded, and a lot of people, to be honest, in shops and stuff like that don't even bother wearing face masks. So yeah, on the whole people are quite like relaxed about it here. Yeah, and generally what else has been happening? So I have also mentioned in vlogs before, but I started up Spanish lessons, so I have a lesson once a week. To be honest, that's been like an ordeal in and of itself, because I mentioned it in a previous video, but like they make you take a test before you can sign up, and I did, and then they tell you what like level to sign up for, which I did, and then it was too hard because they 100% speak in Spanish the whole time, which I find is a really weird concept, because obviously anybody that like studies languages in England at GCSE or A-level knows that, like, especially the way I was taught, is that predominantly it's in English with like bits of the language. Mostly it will be in English, because obviously you're not at a good level when you're doing GCSEs or something to be solely speaking in that language. Whereas for this, even though the level is equivalent to a GCSE or to an A level, they 100% speak in that language, and it's just a lot. Like when you literally have an hour and a half a week solely in Spanish, me sitting there thinking, to be honest, the longest I've heard Spanish for is like a song. It was a lot to get my head around at first, but now I feel like the level that I'm at is right for me, and all of like the homework and stuff that he sets is right. Like I know what I'm doing with it, and the marks and stuff that I get back is good. It's just that when he talks literally in Spanish for an hour and a half, my brain gets so frazzled because I'm so intensely listening to what he's saying to try and understand what he's saying that, like, yeah, it just gives me a migraine. But other than that, like, I am enjoying the class, and it's also nice to have that going on, knowing that it's not going to be assessed, and knowing that it's just like a way for me to do something for myself and doing something to work on my long-term goals that isn't like uni related. I am enjoying that aspect of it, but at the same time it has also added extra stress in that it's an hour and a half just for the class. Then there's homework, which normally takes me 2 or 3 hours, so that's an extra like 3/4 of a day a week just to take a hobby. So whilst it's been fun, it also has umped up the workload, so we will see how that plays out. And other than that, I mean, I met some of my course mates for the first time, because obviously, as I said, it's predominantly been online. I haven't really met anybody. I've seen them on like the Zoom or the Teams call and like in our group chats, but it's not the same. So yeah, there was like 5 of us that went for drinks, and that was really nice. I mentioned that in a vlog as well, and it almost felt like I was back at uni, at undergrad, where you're like having that social life as a student as well as just studying, because I felt like up until that point, for the few weeks that I was doing the course, it very much felt like serious academia, because I literally wasn't doing anything on top of that for fun or like with anybody on my course. Whereas I feel like now almost have a little bit more of a support network for people on my course. So if I feel like you want to moan about something, or you want to ask a query question, or you just want to like be like, how are people finding this class, then I have that. So that's a good step going forward. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that's happened so far for the first 5 weeks, and I feel like now I just want to wrap up this video by saying what's going to happen moving forward, to kind of give you context for the videos that are going to come out. So as I said, I get 2 new modules. Each one is a 10 credit module, so I'm now on top of taking ethics, medical law and moral theory and medical ethics, I'll be taking aspects of medical malpractice, so it's basically negligence, which hopefully will recap on a lot of the stuff that I did at undergrad, so that won't be necessarily a difficult module, hopefully, because it should be quite law-y. And then I'm also taking justice and resource allocation, which is something that I'm really interested in. I wanted a module on this when I signed up to the course, so I'm glad that I have one. And equally, the guy who runs my moral theory and medical ethics class also runs that class, which means he's not going to be setting like 150 pages of reading like other lecturers do. He literally has been setting like 40 pages, and I was like, Alex, you know what, Alex? Real saviour of my course. So yeah, a few of my modules I'm actually taking with him, which means reduced workload. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it basically on that aspect, but equally I know that it's going to be quite intense, because obviously I'm adding an extra 20 credits to what I'm doing now, and I'm struggling doing it now. And then after that I have assessments, so I finish I think around the 12th of December, and then I have a month off, which is the same as how it was for undergrad, and then that's like the assessment period. So I'm gonna have to write one 3,500 word essay and then 2 exams, and basically I'll be tested on my moral theory, my medical ethics and my ethics class, the 3 main classes that I've been taking this term. I've kind of seen the exam papers for ethics and medical law, so they don't seem that bad, because I feel like you hear exam and then you're like, it's going to be bad, but actually they seem okay. If anything, I think the essay is going to be worse because it's 3,500 words on topics that I don't really know about. And then obviously we go into term 2 where I only am literally doing 40 credits, so half of the workload, and I think then that will be chill until April, because then I have 3 essays to do in April for a month, which that'll be fine. And then yeah, literally just have from May to September to do my dissertation. So basically if I can get through the next 5 weeks, it is plain sailing from there. That's what I keep telling myself, but we'll see if that's true. So that brings the end to this video. I feel like hopefully this provided some context for what's going to be happening over the next 5 weeks and how I found the 5 weeks that have just happened. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below, because I'll be doing another recap video at the end of term 1, so in like 5 weeks time, basically giving another update about how I found the health 5 weeks and whether it was actually as bad as I think it's going to be. So yeah, any questions, please put them down below and I will try to include them in that video. And yeah, I hope you like this. I will see you on Monday. I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.